Hi, it's Mike,
And this is Fran.
and you're listening to Mike and Fran Unrehearsed on 216 The Net, real life internet radio. That's 216thenet.com. Hey guys, how's it going? We're getting some really great questions, and if you do want to send in some more, please send them to 216thenet at gmail.com. Hey, I wanted to remind you if you did need to call a doctor from home, call 1-800-MD for all of your medical questions and basic prescriptions. They're available 24/7, 365 from the privacy of your own home, and it's only $10 a month for the entire family to access a board-certified physician. That's 1-800-MD that you would text to 847-903-8061. That's 1-800-MD. Text that to 847-903-8061. Thanks so much. So, Mom, how's it going?
Very good.
So there's a couple of things that we wanted to touch on from last week, and one of them I remember after talking to my sister Linda was about Sears, because we wound up buying a lot of things from Sears when we were growing up. Wasn't it Sears and Roebuck at that time? They had a catalog. They had everything in there. I think you could buy a house in there, wasn't it? Didn't we buy a lot of things from Sears, Mom?
Yes, we had 5 kids, so we bought. Yes, we did.
So, Mom, what things did we buy from Sears?
Well, we bought a lot of things. We had the 5 kids, mainly clothes for the kids, but not jeans for the boys because nobody had jeans that skinny. They were so thin.
Yeah.
We had to go to a place called Crawford's to get those kind of jeans. But we bought clothes, sheets, towels, things for the house.
Craftsman Tools, I think we got there.
Craftsman tools. But Sears sold about everything, even made prefab houses for people.
That's what I hear, yeah.
Yeah.
In an old catalog, I think they actually have a picture of it.
And we had a catalog.
Wasn't the logo Sears has everything? Wasn't that the...
I don't remember
Wasn't that what it was?
I know it was Sears and Montgomery Ward's. There was Monkey Ward's, Montgomery Ward's too, but Sears was a big store we went to.
Okay, what were you saying about me getting lost in the store?
Yeah, I remember you had a little red jacket on, and somehow, I don't know how I had just you there and not the other kids. But anyway, we lost you. Couldn't find you, and this is at Goff Mill, and we thought you might be out in that little waterway there.
Oh, boy.
And we found you somewhere. Somebody had put you back in a room, and you sat there with a coloring book waiting for some parent to find you.
That's right.
And you were perfectly happy.
Well, that's fine.
But I had never lost a kid before in a store.
Well, it happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other correction we wanted to make from last week was the fact that Mom would support all of us kids in anything that we wanted to do. And I mentioned skydiving, and she goes, yes, that's what Lori did. Loretta, my sister. And actually, it was what, Mom?
Sky sailing.
Okay.
Not diving.
So it wasn't skydiving. So I have to ask you this now. If she wanted to go skydiving, would you have let her do that?
Probably.
Probably. Okay.
She was the daring one in the
She
family.
was the
at
daredevil
that
of the
time.
family. That's right. And sky sailing is it was the Indiana Dunes, I think.
High dune, and you
Yeah.
sail out and go out down over the.
But do you
Lake
go in
Michigan.
tandem, or is it no? You go on your own, I think.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
You're on your own,
Yeah, I
strapped
remember
in
that.
there with those
Just
wings.
a big kite and the
Yeah.
little triangle
Yeah.
kind of yeah. She did that. She did a
And
good
when
job.
I took her, most of the people were young men.
Oh.
Most of the people were guys in their 20s, 30s doing it, and here she was in her late teens.
Oh wow.
She was the only girl out doing this.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other thing that we wanted to talk about real quickly was this is what happens, you guys. Wednesday, we listen to the show. Thursday, we get some questions and record it. And then Friday, my 2 sisters, Lisa and Linda, come over and listen to the show with us. And they help me make some clarifications and corrections. And one of the things that I was confused about was when we were living on Maple Lane for like 10 years in Elk Grove Village, I would smell spaghetti gravy cooking in the morning, and I swore and I thought it was on Sundays because we ate it on Sundays. But according to Mom and Linda, it was on Saturday that they cooked
Right,
it.
8 o'clock.
So it was Saturday morning. You put the garlic in the oil in the pan, and you start browning the meat, and you cook it on Saturday. So we smell that Saturday morning. We wake up, we watch cartoons, and then play around, and then on Sunday
You went
we go
to
to
church.
and then we have the dinner later on in the day. So it was
Yeah.
Saturday that you wake up to the smell of garlic
Gravy.
and meat bones being cooked and the gravy.
Creepy crawlers.
Wow.
The squid.
That was like an additional sort of surprise because we didn't always make squid or
No,
calamari
no,
in the sauce. And actually, when I was in Georgia during the early, I guess, mid 80s, when I was down there for my job at Northrop, I tried cooking a spaghetti sauce with calamari and squid and lobster and fish. And I had a local girl that I was kind of hanging out with, and I think her son came over, and he did not like it. Because it was like, it looked good, but then it tasted kind of fishy.
In all those years, and to this day, have never tasted one of the pieces of squid. I never liked the tentacle look. I helped your father clean it. We cooked it. But to this day, the only thing I know about the taste is, if I asked somebody, they said, oh, it tastes like chicken. Everything tastes like chicken. And I have never tasted one. Like I have never tasted a clam either. When we used to be at the shore and we'd pick up the clams, and everybody would have a clam, I could not look at that and put sauce on it. I have never eaten a clam. So there's some things that we just don't appeal to us.
I love all that. I love
know
the raw
you do.
clams and the half shell. I love the seafood. In fact, Dad's favorite dish when we went to La Gondola in Arlington Heights
was there.
zuppa de mar, or fish of the sea. And what was that? It was a dish of linguine pasta, and it had all kind of seafood on it. It had calamari, it had shrimp, it had mussels, it had clams, it had lobster, it had chunks of fish. Fish of the sea, zuppa de mar. And you know what? That's my favorite dish when I go to an Italian restaurant. And what some people do when they go is they always taste like one dish at every restaurant so they can compare. My friend Diane's friend Bob does that. He gets lasagna all the time, and he's like, their lasagna's no good. Okay, but maybe this dish is good, So I don't know, but I love zuppa de mar, and I haven't exactly tried to make it at home, but I do like that dish.
Well, weren't you in London once and you went to Harrods? Because everybody had told you Harrods about this.
Harrods of London. So when I went to London, it was a time where I was sort of trying to find some of our long-lost second cousins. And we had one that lived out there with her husband. I guess he worked for Shell Oil, and they had this beautiful brick building they lived in. And it was, it was like $100,000 a month or something crazy. And she lived there, and she had one small child, and she was pregnant with another child. And I would say, what should I do? I have a couple days here. She goes, well, you have to go to Harrods. I go, I would love to go to Harrods with all the high-tech stuff. And it's got like 8 floors. And, you see things over there before you see them here. No, I didn't know anything about food. And then she goes, and then you have to go to the basement. I go, basement? She goes, yeah, there's a restaurant down there. I go, are you kidding? I go, is it any good? She goes, I can't wait until I have this baby so that I can go to Harrods and get my favorite dish, bouillabaisse. Bouillabaisse, which is sort of the French version of the zuppa de mar without the pasta. And I go, really? It must be good. So I went down there, and I went through the whole building, and it was really high-tech, and it was really cool, because I love that kind of stuff. And I get down there, it's about 8 o'clock, and I go, okay, I'd like to have bouillabaisse, please. And they go, sorry, we're closed. And I'm like, what? I go, you can't be closed. No way. Please, just one more bouillabaisse. Nope, we're closed. And then, of course, they bring one out to a lady over there, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, maybe I could just, steal it from her before she knows it's gone.
Smell it.
It's something. I'm drooling over it over there, looking. I'm like, oh, no, what am I going to do? I'm leaving tomorrow to Chicago. So, I told them the whole sob story, and it didn't get anywhere. And just like anything else, I figured, let me just ask another person and start all over. It's just like when you're calling the airlines and you're trying to change your ticket and they're not cooperating. You hang up and you call somebody else and you go, "Look, I know you probably can't do this, but it would really help me out and be a big favor. And by the way, you know, my grandma's not going to make it another month, and I really have to see her. And, I mean, can you help me out or something, just to get them on your side?" So another person came out, and I think it was a woman, and I was just casually walking by, and I went, "Oh, I don't know. I would really like to have a bouillabaisse. Usually I'm here a lot earlier, but I'm sorry I got here a little. Can you just get one more out, please? That would really be great. Let me see what I can do." And she comes back, "Yes." And I had my wonderful bouillabaisse at Harrods in the basement.
In
and
London.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I highly recommend it. Well, I mentioned a couple shows ago that while I was driving as a 13-year-old in a pickup truck with my grandfather, your father, Avon D. Babb, and we started going up a hill near the lake, and it was one of those accelerators that were kind of touchy, and I touched it, and I went, da, and I killed the motor, and we started rolling back, and his foot went over like a lightning rod to the brake, and we stopped right there dead after we started rolling back about, I don't know, 5 or 10 feet or something. And then, of course, we restarted it and put it in park, and then he drove out of there, and everything was fine. So you have a story about Grandma being lightning fast, don't you?
Well, my mother was like that with her arm. She was a quick little rap or slapper. She would whip out with that hand. And I remember that several times in my life it became a situation we could laugh about later. When I was about 10 years of age, I liked to write and enter things in newspapers and things. And we had a pamphlet that went out called The Oregon Farmer, if I remember correctly. Oh gosh, this is in the 1930s.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, I sent in and called a lucky break, and I won first prize, and I won $10.
So the name of the paper was A Lucky Break?
No,
That you wrote?
the article I wrote was a lucky break.
Okay.
And I won. And $10 in that day was pretty good money. When you could buy a hamburger, because ever I went to town with my little grandmother, Louisa, I was Bergie. I was a Bergie kid. You could
Bergie?
get it for 5 cents, and your newspapers are 3 cents. So things were cheaper then. So $10 was a good amount of money.
Wow.
So my mother went to pick up the money wearing a green felt hat, and it poured down rain, as it does in Oregon. And the hat shrunk, and she never could wear it again.
Oh, boy.
So it was always a joke about, well, of course I gave the $10 to her, that she got the $10, I won it, but she lost her green hat.
Oh, I see.
But my mother wondered sometimes where she came with this quick hand.
Okay.
And you were going to ask me, where'd she get it from?
No, I don't know.
Well,
It's just what a mother does.
not always. No, not at all. Grandma Latone would have never done that.
Oh, okay.
But my mother's,
Probably right.
her character, personality. But when I met her
Well,
mother...
she had 6 kids, and Grandma only had 2, so, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they didn't get into much trouble.
No, Grandma had 4 or 5, Grandma Louisa Babb Young.
No. I'm talking about 6 on your side for your mother, and 2 on the other side for my other grandmother. That's all. Okay, go ahead. Just go ahead.
Well, when I first met them, and I only met them really about 3 or 4 times in my entire life.
You're talking about your grandparents.
Yes, Grandpa and Grandpa Brashears, my mother's parents.
Okay.
And that one of those was a funeral because he lived in eastern Oregon, in Wallow, which is 300, 400, 500 miles away, in another corner of Oregon. And when we went there, we didn't know them that well. And that nobody talked on the phone, nobody wrote letters. We were like little strangers. And I remember once I was about 12 or 13, and I used the word cripes. Oh, cripes. Wow! Out came Grandma's hand right across my face, and I was shocked. Young lady, nobody uses a word like that. This was the ex-school teacher.
Well, this would have
And
been like shit or something now. I mean,
yeah,
I
well,
mean,
she
as
thought
a
Christ
kid,
was terrible.
As a kid, yeah, right.
And I was shocked, and of course I cried. I was always a big little crybaby, and ran in the living room to sit down. Well, I would never get any sympathy from my grandfather because he sat in the corner. He was a good number of years older than my grandma. He was a crotchety old Frenchman. He sat there with his long handlebar mustache, his kind of beady little eyes, chewing snooze, and had a dog at his side called Rex, who looked at you with a grrr, and you never knew if you spoke to him who would bite you first, Grandpa or Rex,
Oh,
the
boy.
dog.
No.
So let's just say they weren't lovey-dovey grandparents. Marvelous, straight, square, honest people, but they weren't the type that went over and hugged. Just briefly, my grandmother was a teacher in a schoolhouse that had grades 1 through, I think, 12, and she was the only teacher of about 14 kids in Eastern Oregon. And 4 of the boys were so terrible, 4 of her boy students, that she had to go all the time to talk to the father. Well, this was my grandfather. She eventually ended up marrying him.
Wow.
Because he had lost his wife and he had 4 sons. So when she married him, she became the stepmother of those 4 sons. And then my mother and my aunt and my uncle had 5 more kids in the family. My mother was the eldest. So that hand business came out pretty good, you know.
But that's interesting.
But people, we had a whole different childhood then. There was a lot more rigidity. I mean, you dressed up in your Sunday clothes and you sat in a corner and you didn't move. There wasn't the freedom. They didn't talk to you that much like they used to. Just far different.
So actually, Fran, that's kind of one of our questions was, how would you describe your generation and how it was different from your parents' generation? So you kind of touched on it a little bit, I think.
Well, I think the amazing thing is when you look across generations, your parents had one that was very strict in certain areas, and in my family it was. Then I think each generation tries to do what they feel is right. That I know if there were things that happened in my family, I have 6 kids, I always would say, when I have my family, I have the right to do this and put in all the things that I feel are right, like the birthday parties and more hugging and not as austere as my mother was from her mother, who was much more austere.
But it was also harder times, I think, too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, they had to go out and work early.
Yeah.
My mother was in her early teens, and she was babysitting a little neighbor boy who was crippled, who could ride a horse well. And she would always take him out on his horse and her horse, and she would like babysit him. His last name was Hahn. I can't remember the first name. And we go to the cemetery where my aunt is. Down the hill is the old Hahn house.
Wow.
And but she worked very hard. She worked at Crow's store, which was a mercantile store that sold a little bit of everything, and it just closed 2 or 3 years ago after being open over 100 and some years.
All right, so when we go
Yeah.
to Oregon, we go to Eastern Oregon where your family, a lot of your family is buried out there and then lived out there.
Yeah,
And
Wallow.
was this in Lostine that the store was at?
Lostine, yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
So this
Wallow and Enterprise.
This
yeah.
is all Eastern Oregon.
That is correct.
Where your mother grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she worked her head off to pay on, I think, 25 cents a week for a $9 ring that her high school ring cost then.
Wow.
I mean, the one dress she had, they weren't a lot of money and they had to work hard.
Well, it was all relative.
And after she graduated from high school,
Yeah.
she went down to Eugene, Oregon, where my father lived in that part of the state, and babysat at our cousins, the Ben Shadlers, because they needed somebody to help in their home.
Oh.
They were relatives.
Oh, I see.
And then she ended up taking care of my father's mother, who was ill, and married my father. And he was 12, 13 years older, my dad.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
there wasn't a lot of easy life. But fortunately, my mother and father did make it. My mother, well, with all her beautiful Jaguars and big cars and the clothes, she was a very statuesque, interesting woman, handsome.
Wow.
That she could spend money.
Right.
That it was a big thing when we could go to Nordstrom's once, and she spent like $1,700 at one thing to buy a couple of outfits, and I'm over there going, wow, I don't have that kind of money. I was working as a teacher, and Jim and I were raising 5 kids, but I was
Right.
so happy because my mother had paid the dues of life.
She sure
In
did.
every way. And when she went on the 4 trips to England with me, and other places, 4 different trips to Europe, it was just so glad to have my mother enjoying this because she'd worked so hard. And we had so much fun.
Yeah,
I really got to know this woman whom I didn't grow up feeling that close to.
Yeah.
She scared you with her little whipping hand, and
Right.
I was the eldest of the kids, and it was Francis do that, Francis do that. But when I look back, what a joy later when I could travel with her. She had the most picturesque way of speaking, used little words, little witticisms. She was very smart.
Yeah, yeah.
She was just an unusually interesting person.
Remember we started putting some of those words down.
Yes,
of
yes.
The funny things that she
Her
said.
twiddly-dee and her idgity and
Land of Goshen.
Land of Goshen. Oh, she had every. Yeah, we started listing them one time.
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the
we
unique
did.
way my mother talked.
Gosh Almighty, or
Yeah.
darn it, or what
Lisa
would
was
she say?
Lisa Rue. She
Lisa
had names
Rue.
for everybody. Yeah,
What did she used to say? I remember. She used to say, "Oh shoot."
yeah, yeah. Oh shoot! Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's Grandma, right? Well, that's a great story, Mom. That's
Yeah.
great. Okay, Fran. So here's a good question for you. What was the one thing, or maybe 2 things, that you would have liked to change about yourself?
Oh boy. I think. Oh gosh, there'll probably be a lot of things, but I think
Oh, you need only 1 or 2.
the thing that tells you the most, I always would have liked to have changed my voice.
Oh,
I felt that came across a little bit too loud, too firm at times. I would have loved to have had an English accent. Loved the English accent.
Right.
Loved every English movie. Secondly, would have been my mannerism. If Fran Latone, Bab Latone came into a room, it was like, Mum, here you are, like you're at the circus. I came in Zazoom, and I always wanted to move in like a Indian princess in a sari and go so
Really?
softly that my garment didn't even ripple in the breeze at all. But
Okay.
that wouldn't have been me.
So couldn't you have mentally thought about that before you entered a room and just
No.
sort of eased your way in behind the people?
No, I
and
had
like-
too much
what-
exuberance.
You had too-
I was the one that I think the teachers, here comes Fran. Wow, good morning, folks. I was turned on to the world.
So you had too much exuberance.
Yeah.
you
I think I'd like to calm that a little bit.
But people,
and-
but people tend to expect that because they know
That's
you.
right. That was
So,
me.
I mean,
That was
that
me.
was you. If you didn't
Yeah.
if you didn't come in that way,
Yeah.
they might think that there was something wrong
Right.
or you had a problem.
for sure.
I mean, what's wrong, Fran?
Yeah.
You're not yourself. You're not yourself.
And thirdly, I would have liked to have had my mother's long legs and thin ankles. Everybody in my family, I had a sister that was 5'9".
Oh, sorry about that phone call, folks. We don't quite have a soundproof studio at home yet, but I'm working on it. So, Mom, what was it that you were saying?
As I was saying, I was the eldest of 6 children and by far the shortest. And was saying I had one sister, Rebecca Lynn, who was 5'9" or 10. She was tall. My mother was tall. My brother's near 6 feet, and my other sister's 5'5". I think 5'4" was the shortest. But I was 5'1.5". But I had a little German grandma, Louisa Lola Iwan, and she was short. So my little joke, and it wasn't a joke, when I kept saying as a young kid, when everybody would say, "Why are you the shortest?" I would say, "Well, Mom and Dad were only practicing when they had me." And everybody would tee, titter, titter, and I'd go, "What are they giggling about?" I had no idea.
How old were you when you were saying that?
Oh, I had to be 11, 12, 13. We didn't know. I never knew when my mother was going to have a child. They never announced that. In those days, she got a big tummy and we'd go out and I just thought, oh, I'm Francis. I'm going to have a child in 6 weeks. Oh, I didn't know that. Nobody ever told you those things.
Birds
It
and the
was
bees,
not a big deal.
no
I
stork
mean,
coming by or anything?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so I have to ask now, when do you think you learned about the birds and the bees?
oh, good Lord.
I
Probably
mean,
when I was in, when I was in health class in high school, probably.
okay.
When in health, did
So
you
you
find
didn't.
when
So
they
it
did,
wasn't your mother. It wasn't your father.
no,
It wasn't,
no. or scouts or something somewhere.
Oh boy,
I learned
Scouts.
about that. I was a
I
Girl
would,
Scout.
I would like to teach that class in Scouts.
Yeah, but,
Birds and the bees.
I
Okay,
don't
Michael,
know.
go.
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh my God, that's a good story. All right, Fran, so let's cover this last question for today. Given your life experience, do you find yourself judging a book by its cover, so to speak, or do you feel more reserved and objective about judging people the older that you've become?
Oh, absolutely. I can remember back as a young Francis, you were more taken in by flash and pizzazz and clothes of certain
Yeah,
people.
absolutely.
And then as you matured, you began to realize the real person is inside, how they do, how they feel. Being attractive was a big thing in my age. You dressed to, not to please women, you dressed to please men. You wanted to be attractive.
Right,
But
right.
as you got older, the good inside a person was far better than what they just looked like on the outside. So judging a book by its cover was too hasty.
Too artificial,
Yeah.
too unfair,
Yeah.
too,
And then when you found out what the person was really like, oh my, you would have missed some great people in the world if you hadn't had looked through that.
I think I try to give everybody
Yeah.
the benefit of the doubt before I get to know them and learn something
Yeah.
about them and hear them and talk to them. And then I can maybe, sort of have a better understanding of where they're coming
Mm-hmm.
from and whether I want to, be friends with that person or do business with that person or whatever. But I think it takes a little bit of time
Mm-hmm.
to figure that out with somebody. But, you always hear the old thing about the real estate guy wants to buy this building here and it's a 6 flat apartment and he's got holes in his jeans and a t-shirt that he just threw on. But hey, if he's, worth a couple $1,000,000, he's going to be fine. But you just don't know that until you start talking to him.
Judging a book by its cover, literally, when my mother had the 6th child and I was in college with my girlfriend Roxy, we went out and bought a book to take to the hospital as Mom counted 6. Little did we realize it was the sexiest, most graphic book in the world. And Francis, I would never read that. Well, we bought it, the book by its cover, by its
Funny.
title.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
good one, Mom. I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. Well, Mom, that's about it for episode 7 of Mike and Fran Unrehearsed. Thanks for tuning in, and please subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and go to Mike and Fran, and please subscribe. All of our shows are there, plus some extra videos that you might not be able to see unless you're on our YouTube channel. See you next Wednesday at noon. Have a good week.
Wear a mask, keep your distance, and here's to another week.
Take care, everybody.